Good afternoon and welcome. You're watching News Central now on News Central Television. My name is Mazino. Appeal. The top stories this hour. Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima calls for action against climate change at UN General Assembly. South African Workers' Union calls for release of detained and bad governance activists in Nigeria. And trial of former top Malian government officials over controversial 2014 purchase of presidential jet and military equipment begins. Details coming shortly. Welcome. The news at the hour begins with updates on the 79th United Nations General Assembly in New York. Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima has addressed the United Nations General Assembly, calling for concerted efforts by world leaders to support peacekeeping operations. Shettima, who is representing President Bola Tinubu, also called for the expansion of the Security Council, calling for a permanent seat for Africa at the United Nations. The Vice President also stated that insecurity is driving people into hardship. On climate change, Shettima called for global efforts to mitigate climate change.
We cannot build durable societies with the threats of terrorism, banditry, and insurgency growing in our countries and regions. Indeed, violent extremism remains an existential threat to both national and international peace, security, and development. We are making concerted efforts to contain and roll back this threat. The high-level African counter-terrorism meeting hosted by Nigeria in April 2024 and its outcome, the Abuja Declaration, promises to provide solutions to the challenges presented by terrorists and insurgents. Climate change is a driver of insecurity, which also poses a veritable challenge to sustainable development. A few weeks ago, large areas of my country were inundated by seasonal flood waters, including one of our largest cities, Maiduguri, in the northeast. Other parts of Nigeria also experienced similar tragedies, occasioning the loss of lives and property. We need not remind ourselves to remain faithful to the implementation of the commitments that we all gave voluntarily at the various COP meetings. Failure to do so is merely to postpone the inevitable. No country is immune from the effects of climate change. It is better that we cooperate and collaborate to meet this ever-increasing challenge rather than remaining in our shells, waiting for the inevitable to happen. A common challenge.
Similarly, the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, also spoke with News Central's correspondent.
There is always a need to have the UN General Assembly, even if some of the conversations sound like they've been had before, because you need a forum in which the globe can get together and voice what the issues are, and each head of state has a chance to speak about these global issues. So for me, the question is not really, are the conversations better this year than last year? The question is there a forum where you can have a global conversation and people can get heard who normally don't? And I think this year, there's so many challenges in the world, from conflicts to geopolitics to the world economy. So it's good to have that.
Earlier on the news, our correspondent Bernard Akede joined us live from New York to give us update on the ongoing UN General Assembly.
What the Vice President Kashim Shettima said is nothing far from what I expected him to say. He highlighted some of the issues, most of the issues that Nigeria has been experiencing in the past few years. He talked about climate change, talked about global warming. He talked about AI, the scares and the fears that people are having with the artificial intelligence. He talked about the flooding that we recently experienced in Maiduguri. He talked about the insecurity in the Sahel and how it's affected Nigeria. But after talking about, besides talking about all the ills that the country is facing, he also talked about, the advantages that a country like Nigeria can bring to the table, joining other African leaders who spoke today, saying that it is time for African countries and developing countries to have a seat, a permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council, he basically explained that Nigeria is big enough. Nigeria has the economy now. Nigeria is the go-to country, and not just Nigeria, Africa is the go-to continent. He mentioned the population age of the African continent and how the youthful population of the continent can be an advantage, not just to Africans, but to the rest of the world. They used to say space is the new frontier. Now it is Africa. Every investor, everybody is coming down this way. And these are some of the things that the Vice President, His Excellency Kashim Shettima, did highlight. Interestingly, I would like to note that on his way out, after giving that, that long and interesting speech, we were able to catch up with him, and he obliged us just one question very quickly. I asked him that almost every African leader who has spoken today has clamored for Africa or African countries to get a seat, a permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council. And I asked him, I said, do you think now is the time? Everybody has asked for it. Do you think now is the time, and why? And he said, yes, now is the time. He answered that question in just 3 points. He said, now is the time because we have the numbers, we have the economy, and we have the future. He mentioned insecurity, he mentioned poverty, he mentioned issues with the economy. And remember that he also did say that, it's expected that the international community should still rally around to support African countries that are lagging behind in these particular places. To me, in the early hours of today, when I had conversations with Felicity and other anchors on our station this morning, I did say that it's about time that African countries began to source solutions to African problems. We've heard several notable speakers and African leaders say that, and even on our station, we've heard contributors say that the solution to Africa's problems lies in Africa by Africans. I was saying that I would hope that African leaders will not come back to the UN General Assembly again this year, cap in hand, seeking for debt relief, seeking for debt pardon, seeking for more aid from the Western world and from foreign countries. Now, he didn't categorically say that we should get more support, more supplies, more aid, but he did say that the developed countries should support in maybe not using the same terms, but he actually did say that they should not overlook the developing countries, that we still, in one way or the other, need support. We still need some hand-holding. But in all of that, I strongly still believe, and I stand by my words, it's about time for Africa to take charge of African issues. And if Africa does want a permanent seat at the Security Council.
Now let's also tell you about other notable speeches from the presidents of South Africa, the United States, Brazil, and Turkey, who underscored the critical need for international collaboration and sustainable solutions. News Central's Chidima Ona reports.
At the 79th UN General Assembly, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed the exclusion of Africa from key decision-making structure in the UN Security Council, calling for reform. Ramaphosa also highlighted South Africa's commitment to peace, security, and human rights.
Achieving and maintaining peace and security requires the collective will of the community of nations gathered here. 78 years since its formation, the structure of the United Nations Security Council remains largely unchanged. Africa and its 1.4 billion people remain excluded from its key decision-making structure. This cannot continue. The UN Security Council must be reformed as a matter of agency.
In his final address to the UN General Assembly as U.S. President, Joe Biden emphasized the urgent need for humanitarian assistance in war-torn regions. He called for renewed global partnerships, urging nations to collaborate in tackling climate change and addressing global inequality.
Our test is to make sure that the forces holding us together are stronger than those who are pulling us apart. That the principles of partnership that we came here each year to uphold can withstand the challenges. That the center holds once again. My fellow leaders, I truly believe we're at another inflection point in world history. For the choices we make today will determine our future for decades to come. Will we stand behind the principles that unite us? Will we stand firm against aggression? Will we end the conflicts that are raging today? We take on global challenges like climate change, hunger, and disease.
Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Brazil's President Inácio Lula da Silva delivered impassioned speeches on the ongoing humanitarian crisis, stressing the importance of diplomacy in conflict resolution. They called on the international community to collaborate on finding solutions to the world's most pressing challenges.
We are living in a time of growing anguish, frustration, tension, and fear. We are witnessing an alarming escalation of geopolitical disputes and strategic rivalries. 2023 holds the sad record of the highest number of conflicts since World War II. Over $90 billion have been mobilized with nuclear arsenals. These resources could have been used to finance the fight against hunger and climate change.
Our problem is with the oppressor and the oppression, just as it was 5 centuries ago. Everybody should know about this. We will always speak of the truth and speak of what's right and what's fair.
The discussions at the UNGA 79 highlighted a growing consensus among world leaders on the interconnectedness of today's challenges and the need for a cooperative action. As the Assembly continues, the focus remains on dialogue and the urgent call for a unified response to the global crisis we face. In Lagos for News Central, Chidinma Ona.
Underlying problem in Israeli-Palestine.
Now, away from the UN General Assembly, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria has increased the monetary policy rate, which sets the benchmark for interest rates from 26.75% to 27.25%, surpassing analysts' and economists' expectations. CBN Governor Olayemi Cardoso announced the 50 basis point hike during a press conference on Tuesday, following the committee's 297th meeting in Abuja. News Central's business correspondent Perpetua Fasami-Peter interviewed analysts to gather their perspectives on the decision.
Raise the MPR by 50 basis points to 27.25%.
This announcement was a shock to many analysts and economists.
I think, what the market was expecting was a flat, change in the policy rate. But this that has happened is a surprise, to the market.
Continuing to raise hike rates, it's got to stop, because whilst you are doing that, first, you are not reducing money supply. And secondly, like you said, we are affecting businesses. Cost of borrowing is going to go up regardless of what you do. As soon as you hike rates, cost of borrowing will go up.
Though the rate hike may pose challenges for local businesses and production, it can also attract foreign investors seeking higher yields, especially as central banks in the US and UK ease policies.
You will find that Nigeria is now a more compelling market for those investments coming from abroad to look for higher yield on investment instruments. And that, to my mind, should support the stability and possibly the appreciation of our exchange rate. When a country understands how to make the best use of foreign portfolio investments, you can sustain those investments over a medium to long term in your economy, and they continue to help you to stabilize your currency.
Analysts unanimously argue that addressing Nigeria's inflation crisis requires a more structural approach beyond simply cutting interest rates.
Where hopefully, if we get it right with the introduction of Dangote into the picture with regards to refined petroleum products, we should see a significant reduction in the demand pressures on the dollar. So this is completely outside of the NPR thing and all of that. This is just something that we're talking about the exchange rate, and if we get that right, then we should see a reduction in inflation.
Well, I think two numbers come to mind for me when we talk about exchange rates. Number one is $7.3 billion. That is the amount that government officials have said that Nigeria will be able to save when we sell our crude oil in Naira to local refiners. A more compelling number for us to save on an annual basis going forward looks to me like that $20 billion, assuming that we can completely eliminate all form of oil-related importation. I think that will be more instructive and more supportive of our FX rate stability going forward.
The 297th meeting of the MPC also saw the committee hike MPR by 50 basis points to 27.25%, retain the asymmetric corridor around the MPR at plus 500 to minus 100, raise the cash reserve ratio of deposit money banks to 50% and that of merchant banks by 200 basis points to 16%. However, it retained the liquidity ratio at 30%. In Lagos, for News Central, I am Perpetua Fasami Peter.
And now time for a break. When the news returns, Justice Binta Nyako recuses herself from Nnamdi Kanu's trial. When we return. And you're welcome back. Justice Binta Nyako of the Federal High Court in Abuja has recused herself from the trial of detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra over charges bordering on treasonable felony. This followed the demand by the IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu after he went on a tirade in court, insisting the trial judge should recuse herself from the trial. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu reports.
It was a clash between the accused, the defense counsel, and the trial judge. The point of contention here is that the proscribed IPOB leader says that he is not convinced that the court presided over by Justice Binta Nyako has the jurisdiction to try him, having been vindicated by the Supreme Court, which had earlier ruled that he should be tried in London, where he committed the alleged crime.
It says all these things are online. Is it not page 18? All these things are online. So I suggest that the journalists in this country actually take out time to do some basic research. It's not difficult, just minor research. You will understand the vacuousness, the emptiness of all the charges against me. They kept switching the charges. They said I committed this crime in England, isn't it? Yes.
Justice Nyako, who couldn't stand the protest scene created by the IPOB leader, announced her withdrawal from the trial.
The court did make some order, and the consequences of that order would have resulted in getting him adequately prepared. But most of those orders were disobeyed in their material particulars. For instance, we were not provided a clean room where no one will have listening devices to listen to our conversations.
The IPOB leader continued his agitations without mincing words, exonerating the IPOB group, saying it is not responsible for the fragile peace in the southern eastern part of the country.
Lots of Biafra are trying to use my name to gain relevance. I don't want it. I don't want any killings, no kidnapping. All this nonsense are alien to us as a people. I don't know where these animals came from. They are taking advantage of the fact that I'm in detention. But it will soon end. It will soon end. On IPOB, trying to use the name of IPOB, trying to subvert the will of the people, our principles and our core values. That person has a lot to contend with when the time comes. You can run, but you can never hide. You can run and hide and be talking all manner of rubbish, but one day we'll catch up with you.
For now, Kanu has been taken back to detention and his case file handed back to the chief judge. In Abuja, for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
The All Progressives Congress has responded to Yaga Africa after the former alleged manipulations in the just concluded gubernatorial elections in Edo State. The Independent National Electoral Commission declared APC's Monday Okpero winner of the keenly contested election. INEC said the APC candidate secured 291,667 votes, Ighodalo with 247,274 votes, while Akpata scored 22,763. Moments later, Yaga Africa released a communique saying the election failed the integrity test. In a statement by the National Publicity Secretary, APC Felix Moka, the party warned the civil society group to stay within its role as an observer, adding that the Independent National Electoral Commission was the sole body to declare the result. And now on education. Primary school teachers under the aegis of the Local Education Authority in Abuja are currently demonstrating over unpaid arrears of 25 months. The teachers who early embarked on an indefinite strike are lamenting the deafening silence of the relevant authorities in charge of the payment. This was after a 14-day ultimatum that the Nigeria Union of Teachers FCT chapter issued to the 6 area councils in the territory.
Primary school teachers are being neglected. They are being relegated to the background. The primary school teachers, they are dying. The primary school teachers are not being taken good care of. And that's why we are here. It will interest you to know that there are 40% increase that has been given, has not even been implemented, not to talk of the arrears. The recent 25% increase again that has just been given, only primary school has not been given. Their counterparts in UB, in senior secondary schools, have been given. Now, not to talk about the minimum wage arrears of 2019.
Not Donald Trump.
It has been there. They have not given them.
Okay.
Want to appreciate the Honorable Minister of FCT, who has agreed to help the area councils, and he paid 40%. And he said the remaining 60%, the area councils should go and pay. But as I'm talking to you now, none of the area council chairman have paid a dime. Okay.
In the meantime, the federal government has released 10 billion naira for the enhancement of facilities at the newly upgraded Federal University of Education, Pangshin, in Plateau State. The director from the Federal College of Education, Ucheuba, led a 7-man ministerial assessment team from the Federal Ministry of Education, the National Universities Commission, and the National Commission for Colleges of Education to oversee the mission. News Central's Chizoba Anonywe has the details.
The Federal University of Education, Pangshin, formerly known as the Federal College of Education, was established in 1974 in Pangshin local government area of Plateau State. It was founded to train students as prospective teachers with strong leadership qualities. This recent upgrade follows a motion sponsored by Yusuf Gagdi, representing the Pangshin Kanke Kanam Federal Constituency.
I want to assure you that the governor and the government of Plateau State will give the college all the necessary support and backing to ensure that it succeeds. It's not time for politics, and we shouldn't be politicizing every issue.
Federal College of Education Pangshin to Federal University of Education Pangshin means empowerment, means development, means progress, means educational attainment, means a lot to the people and means a lot to me, because it comes with a lot of dividend. It comes with a lot of goodwills in times of infrastructural expansions, in times of creating job opportunities and employment to citizens and people living within the catchment area.
We are here to conduct a comprehensive assessment of the existing facilities and take a detailed inventory of what they have already.
The upgrade is aimed at improving the standard of education and expanding the course offerings at the institution, a move that beneficiaries say is a welcome development.
On behalf of the student, that we are happy to the extreme, and we cannot even express our happiness with the actualization of this university. It was actually it is a dream come true.
Pangshin is blessed, the college is blessed, and we are blessed too, and we are happy to have a new university.
As the assessment of the facility by the 7-man ministerial assessment team continues, it is hoped that the objectives of this upgrade will be fully realized. From Pangshin local government area of Plateau State, Chizoba Anonywe reporting for News Central.
The Heifer International and Polis Africa have launched an initiative known as Poultry Supply Chain De-risking Program, expected to boost the supply of poultry products and help tackle food insecurity. The initiative, which seeks to engage over 7,000 smallholder farmers from Kaduna and Nasarawa states, will equip farmers with 3 essential tools, comprehensive training and vital resources needed to establish sustainable and profitable poultry business in the country. And the Nigerian police force has disbursed over 5 billion naira to a total of 2,148 family members of slain personnel as a balance payment for their insurance while in service. The Inspector General Police presented the check to the family members and the next of kin of the deceased police officers in the nation's capital, Abuja. Our correspondent, Idong Joseph, filed this report.
After that, in the family of Inspector.
This presentation of a check worth 5,754,290,486 naira 38 kobo is the 7th insurance payment made to families and next of kin of deceased police officers in the last 13 months. This disbursement, the police say, is the largest in its history to families of slain officers.
With this 7th presentation, we have presented checks amounting to 15,606,138,376 naira 26 kobo to 5,225 family members and next of kin of deceased officers.
While recognizing that no amount of money can replace the loss of a loved one, the Inspector General of Police said that the scheme aims to offer some relief to them for the challenges they face. He assured that the sacrifices of their loved ones will never be forgotten.
While we know we cannot fill the void left by the loss of your loved ones, we hope that these checks will provide some support as we face the challenges ahead. As we honor our fallen heroes, we also renew our commitment to the safety and well-being of the officers who continue to serve. The current management of the force remains steadfast in its dedication to prioritizing the welfare of our personnel.
We really appreciate what you people did to us, and we pray that you will continue to do to others as you did to us. And we pray that this check keep giving to us to support our children.
This latest disbursement, according to the police, covers balance payment for insurance policy for the year 2018 to 2019, 2021 to 2022, 2022 to 2023, and 2023 to 2024. These policies include the Group Life Assurance, Group Personal Accident Insurance, the Inspector General of Police Family Welfare Scheme, and the Group Life Assurance Death Benefits Arrears for the uninsured period of 2021 to 2022. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
We earlier talked about the Heifer International and the Polis Africa having launched an initiative known as Poultry Supply Chain De-risking Program. Here's that package that we didn't bring earlier, coming to you now.
From the bakery, restaurants and to households, the demand for poultry products remains high as the fight against malnutrition gains momentum in the country. These smallholder poultry farmers, together with major stakeholders in the agricultural value chain, are seeking practical solutions to the rising demand of poultry products in the country. The initiative, also known as the Poultry Supply Chain De-risking Program, is an initiative of the non-governmental organizations Heifer International and Polis Africa.
Farmers have to have the confidence that they are getting the quality inputs from the providers. They have to have the assurance that the financial institutions will be able to support them to get them the finance that they need to scale their businesses.
The Federal Ministry of Agriculture, while applauding the initiative, says that it will help address Nigeria's food insecurity problems.
The ministry is actually proud to see private organizations and well-meaning Nigerians, farmers, that are actually engaged and involved, have interests in curbing food insecurity in Nigeria.
The intention or the objective that we have is to bring all of this tied together so that everybody gets a value out of the system, equitably. Not that the farmer is, left without adequate benefit for the effort that they put into production.
In my farm, when I started with 200 birds with little or no knowledge at all, or sharp knowledge, let me put it that way. And at the end of the production, I have only 25 birds remaining. I had Gumboro outbreak, Newcastles, because knowledge was not really imparted then. I had lots of losses. But with this now, I think I can do better. I'm doing better. And now presently I have 7.
Coming up, South African Workers' Union calls for end bad governance activists' release in Nigeria. We'll tell you more after the break. Join us again. And the news continues in West Africa, where the Greenpeace, an environmental organization in Ghana, says it is concerned by reports that 50 million second-hand items of clothing arrive in Ghana every week. In a release report, Fast Fashion Slow Poison highlights that every week up to 500,000 items of clothing waste from Kantamanto Market end up in open spaces and informal dump sites. The report also reveals that 89% of clothing waste in Ghana's dump sites contain synthetic fibers, leading to widespread microplastic contamination. These clothes are burned in open fires to heat water in public warehouses or wash houses, leading to levels of benzene exceeding European indoor air guide values by almost 200 times. The group has called on the president of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to ban the import of textile dead waste immediately. Now joining us to discuss on this is the head of investigations at Greenpeace Africa, Sam Kwasi-Aiden. He joins from London, UK. You're welcome, Kwasi. Good to have you on this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Mazino. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
You're welcome. Now, can you please summarize the key findings of your report on second-hand clothes in Ghana? What specific environmental problems have been identified in relation to the influx of second-hand clothing in Ghana?
Yeah, so Mazino, I think it's important to outline that every week we're talking about approximately 1,500 tons of second-hand garments arriving into Ghana, into Kantamanto specifically, which is Ghana's largest second-hand clothing market. And much of this, is also re-exported to other West African countries and other parts of Ghana. But every week, about 500,000 items of clothing waste from Kantamanto market end up in Ghana's open spaces. And so at Greenpeace Africa, we're very much interested in documenting the fate of these bad quality secondhand items once they are thrown away from Kantamanto market. And, it was quite shocking to see that, a large amount of those clothes essentially end up in landfill sites, in open spaces, green spaces. And so that kind of prompted us to kind of look further into that. And we also acknowledged, as you mentioned in the intro, that a lot of these textile waste end up in public wash houses in the particular area of Old Fadama. And so that prompted us to perform some indoor air sampling testing to kind of see what people in those wash houses were exposed to in terms of, the fumes that they were breathing in. And as you mentioned, we identified some really concerning pollutants like benzene, which is a carcinogenic substance, so creates cancer in humans. We also found styrene, which is toxic to human reproduction. We also identified something we call polyaromatic hydrocarbons, HAPs, some of which are also carcinogenic with chronic exposure, and also phenol, which is mutagenic. And as you said, the levels for benzene were very concerning because we're talking about them being almost 200 times higher than European safety standards. So that was a very big concern for us. And so in terms of the environment, this is having a huge impact on our water bodies, our air, our land. And, we particularly did a lot of research in a coastal area called Jamestown, which is a beach. And, I'm telling you, this beach, I want people to really picture walking on a beach with there not being any sand on. We were mainly walking on piles and piles of textile waste. So these environmental concerns are very big for us.
Kwashi, humor me. I'm going to ask how much your jacket costs. It's very, very nice. How much was it? Can you tell?
Well, actually, I enjoy vintage shopping, so I do a lot of secondhand shopping.
Okay.
So this was actually purchased at a vintage shop in London.
But it must cost a pretty penny now, doesn't it?
Well, actually, vintage clothing is good because it's not, as expensive, I guess.
Okay.
So this was a good sustainable fashion alternative for my wardrobe.
You do agree with me, but that whatever the case, the amount you bought it for is not something that can be afforded by most Ghanaians, and that is why there's a huge market for these second-hand clothes. So I'm asking this because I want to know why total ban, because this is going to affect the average Ghanaian who purchases these second-hand clothes. Why not reforms? Why not perhaps maybe regulation?
Yes, so I want to make it clear that we are not advocating at all for a total ban. What we are actually calling for is a ban on dead waste. So this is clothes that cannot be sold. As you mentioned, we have an economy in Ghana and in a lot of African countries that rely on these imported secondhand clothes. So we're calling for, we're saying send your clothes to Ghana, but make sure they're of good quality so that our economies and our people can actually enjoy these clothes and so that they don't end up, polluting our environments and stuff. So, the research we did on the ground shows that the quality of some of the clothes being imported into the country are not good. And to give you an example, because I was present at the bale openings with the market sellers who kind of buy these bales, once they're imported, and we saw clothes like winter jackets, gloves, beanie hats, things that are not suitable for Ghana's weather, and also clothes that are dirty, that are old-fashioned, that are of poor quality with holes and stuff. So we're saying, please, respect us and send us better quality clothes. So we're not calling for a ban altogether. We're just saying, make sure you send us quality clothes that are actually usable.
Well, Sam Kwashi, I didn't thank you very much, and please do remember to take me shopping, vintage shopping, when I'm in London. Thank you.
I'm waiting for you. Thank you for having me.
Now, in Mali, former ministers and high-ranking military officials stood trial on Tuesday accused of embezzling millions in a controversial 2014 purchase of a presidential jet and military equipment. The $40 million deal, coupled with the procurement of arms without competitive bidding, sparked international outrage and prompted the IMF to suspend funding to Mali. This case underscores the corruption allegations that Mali's military rulers used to justify their 2020 coup. Among the accused is former Defense Minister Sumelu Bubeye Maiga, who died in prison in 2022, and former Finance Minister Buare Fili Sissoko. Maiga supporters hold the junta responsible for his death, while other officials involved face charges of fraud and nepotism. And now, the news continues in South Africa, where the General Industries Workers Union of South Africa says they are worried about Nigeria's government's target on activists. The union has written a petition to the Nigerian High Commission to South Africa, Haruna Manta, calling for the Nigerian government to end harassment and prosecution of critics of the policies. The union says the government of Nigeria has been targeting activists who mobilized in August 2024 under the banner End Bad Governance to protest hunger, economic and social crisis in Nigeria, and increasingly trade unions. They also demand the urgent release of all those arrested concerning the End Bad Governance protests, who still languish in detention without charge in Abuja, and others still held by the police in different parts of the country. Now, situation in southern Africa, with a population of about 2 million people, Lesotho is one of the countries that are situated in South Africa, and they are hard hit by El Nino. Now, about 700,000 citizens are facing food challenges in the country. The country also faces water challenges and unemployment opportunities. News Central's Bongani Sisiba has more.
In the heart of southern Africa lies Lesotho, a country celebrated for its breathtaking mountains and pastoral beauty, but a profound crisis looms, one that stifles life and threatens the souls who call this land home. These dry farms paint a picture of despair, where hope once bloomed in the fields of green. With inadequate rainfall, crops have withered and livelihoods hang in the balance. Families who once thrived on agriculture now face the grim of reality of hunger.
We would always have some of these droughts as it happens. The climate change issues are on the rise. We are going not change them anytime soon. So we need to be doing, and that is where NGOs are to mitigate the effects so that people cope.
The rivers of Mukema, once life-giving, have become shadows of their former self. Every drop of water is fiercely contested between humans and animals, stretching the bond of the community to the limit.
This crazy problem is with the water, because we share with the animals and people. The people was washing the washing here, and the animals will make it drinking here. So we want the people who can help you, who help us with this village.
As grazing lands become barren, cattle wander into residential area in search of sustenance. What was once a vibrant community is now a barren landscape where survival takes precedence over comfort. The crisis is dire.
We are running out of food, people and animals. We as Basotho, we depend on agriculture, we depend on farming. And now that there is no rain, it's even worse. Because if we can look at around, you'll see the bare fields because of that. Now, we are expecting that in few years or few months, we might experience people who are dying because of hunger.
Back in the city too, the Basotho people are feeling the wrath of drought. Businesses are no longer blooming as they used to, and unemployment also looms.
Because of this drought and hunger, some people have become criminals, and old people like me get attacked, and they get deprived of whatever little funds they are making, you know.
Lesotho is not alone in this struggle. Just over the border, Zimbabwe has also declared a state of emergency in the face of a similar catastrophe. The Southern African Development Community is confronting an escalating hunger crisis that threatens millions. However, with determination ignited amidst desperation, the villagers of Mukema village are beginning a critical battle against the drought to redefine their future. The struggle against drought may be relentless, but so is the spirit of the people of this community. In unity, they cultivate hope, resilience, and the belief they can reclaim their land against this drought and water crisis. In Lesotho, for News Central, Bongani Siziba.
Nigeria's second fastest woman, Rosemary Chukwuma, has been added to the World Athletics International registered testing pool. Chukwuma, a former Africa Under-18 and Under-20 double sprint champion and 100-meter bronze medalist at the 2018 Commonwealth Games, became the 8th Nigerian athlete to be included among those long list of high athletes around the world whose names were published by the Athletics Integrity Unit. Other Nigerians who are in the updated testing pool include former world champion, 100-meter hurdle champion and record holder Tobi Amusa and 3-time World Athletics Championship long jump medalist Ese Brume. The Nigerian athletes on the testing pool are required to provide whereabouts information to the Athletics Integrity Unit to be used by the anti-doping organization to locate them for effective out-of-competition doping control. Now, in a bid to enhance grassroots sports development, City Sports Africa announced an ambitious plan to train 10 million youths across the continent in the next 10 years. Since its inception, the Sports Development Organization has successfully trained 250,000 youths, focusing not only on sports, but also on academics and leadership. This initiative seeks to empower young Africans by providing them with holistic training to excel both on and off the field.
It's a very big part for us in every sport. I already explained, before that city sport is city sports for all, meaning everybody should be into sports. So what I need to say is our community strategy started when we were organizing football tournaments. It started with football tournament for a group of boys and girls, mostly boys, from the ages of 7 to maybe 22, somewhere in Sulere. And there was an activity we called the League of Champions that we would sit with them every Sunday morning, once a week, to first talk to them. So you'd have a minimum of 900 people come for that event every Sunday. Speak to them, we then engage them in football tournaments. So we did that.
And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima called for action against climate change at UN General Assembly. South African Workers' Union are calling for release of detained and bad governance activists in Nigeria. And we also told you trial of former top Malian government officials over controversial 2014 purchase of presidential jet and military equipment has begun. To follow us on social media, we are at News Central TV. And remember, you can watch News Central live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.